What's up, everyone? This is Lucas Ross Sports, and it is time for my college football playoff top 4 playoff team standings after week number 3 of the 2022 college football season. Basically, how this video works, I will give you top 4 teams each and every single week, which top 4 teams that I think perform the best on the offense and especially defensive side. Basically, it's not about the records, it's about the team that really played pretty hard every weekend. So let's get right into it here. And of course, how these top 4 standings, I will give you a national championship game prediction, but these are simply just projections. It ain't my college football playoff standings. My college football playoff standings, when I did my predictions back then, I picked Alabama as the number 1 seed. I picked Ohio State as the number 2 seed, Utah as the number 3 seed, and then Georgia as the number 4 seed. I had Alabama going all the way. Basically, that could change throughout the rest of the year. Let's get right into it here. And here is the playoff bracket for the 2022-23 college football season. And of course, the number 1 versus number 4 seeded matchup, that will be played at the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And then the number 2 versus number 3 seed will be played at the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. So basically, that's where the college football semifinals will take place. Let's get started here with the number 1 overall seed here for the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and that's going to be the Georgia Bulldogs once again, week after week. Georgia's been pretty much the number 1 seed for, the first 3 weeks of this college football season. The offense just looks so explosive. Stetson Bennett looks pretty good at quarterback, and the defense especially looks really good. Georgia's defense has been off to a really good start. You look at the game against South Carolina this past weekend, that Georgia offense just really exploded, and that defense really exploded as well. Basically, when we came into this year, we thought Georgia's defense would take a step back, but this team looks really good on the defensive side of the ball, and that's Georgia. Georgia's number 1 on the list here, and they are also number 1 in the AP poll still, so Georgia is number 1 here. Let's go to the number 2 seed now in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, and that's going to be Alabama. Alabama remains number 2. I had Alabama last week ranked number 2, I believe, or maybe Ohio State, I believe. Yeah, I had Alabama at number 3 last week, I believe, and Ohio State at number 2. But this weekend, I think Alabama's offense proved to still be, the second best team in the country. But if the offense can get it going, Alabama still has a chance to be still a top team in coming into the rest of the year. But Georgia right now is that number 1 team. And Georgia's played pretty tough opponents to start out the year. Georgia played, of course, Oregon in that first game, and they blew them out. And then South Carolina last weekend. Alabama had a tough time against Texas, but they proved themselves on the offensive side of the ball last weekend against UL Monroe. So I got to give them the credit there, and that's why I decided to put them at number 2. And of course, in the Fiesta Bowl, who will be the number 3 seed and who will play Alabama if this game were to happen? That is going to be Ohio State. Of course, Alabama versus Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State's offense was pretty strong against Toledo, but basically they've been playing 2 straight, non-conference opponents, and that's why they've been so good on offense as of late. They scored 77 points on Toledo last weekend, and this Ohio State team is rolling right now. I mean, after the, kind of the flat performance against Notre Dame, but I think this team is still capable of, going into the college football playoff at the end of the year. This is a dangerous offense as well. Like I said, I think Ohio State entering this season was going to be the most dangerous offense. But when we look at these 4 teams, they're all pretty much dangerous. Let's go to the 4th seed now. Who will play Georgia in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl if this game were to happen? It's going to be Michigan. So pretty much the same top 4 teams, but a different list to the number 2 seed. I have Alabama as the number 2 overall seed and Ohio State at number 3. So it's Georgia versus Michigan in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Alabama versus Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. If these games were to happen in the semifinals, basically this is how the top 4 teams stand out to me. Georgia with the best offense in the country right now. Alabama pretty much, better performed last weekend. Ohio State scored 77 points. The Michigan keeps continuing to score 50 points a game. The offense looks really strong for Michigan in the first 3 weeks, and can they do that for the 4th week, though? They have to play, of course, Maryland this weekend. That's going to be an interesting matchup. 2 great offensive teams. Looking at the schedule for all these teams, Georgia plays Kent State at home, Alabama plays Vanderbilt at home, and Ohio State plays Wisconsin at home. So all these teams have home games to, for the weekend. So not, a big concern for them heading into this weekend. But let's get, with the projection here, Georgia versus Michigan in the Peach Bowl. If this game were to happen, I'm still picking Georgia to win this game because I think Georgia's offense just is too explosive for Michigan's offense. It's going to be a shootout if this game were to happen. I just think Michigan, though, their defense will kind of struggle in this game, and I think they have I don't think they have what it takes to hang with Georgia's offense if this game were to happen. But Michigan will lose that game by a short score. And then Alabama versus Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. I gotta have to go back and forth on this game so many times. And I gotta tell you, with Alabama, last week I picked Ohio State to win this one, but this time I'm picking the Crimson Tide. I think Alabama's offense performed pretty well last weekend to show that they could hang in there with the national championship contenders. And Alabama showed it, against UL Monroe, and I think Alabama will beat Ohio State if this game were to happen. It's the same kind of thing with the Michigan and Georgia game, shootout type game. But at the end of the day, I think Alabama's offense just a little bit better than Ohio State's. And now we go to the national championship game. It's Georgia versus Alabama. In the first week, I picked Georgia to beat Alabama in the national championship game. But instead, I have to go with Georgia once again. This is the third straight week I think I picked Georgia to win the national championship if this game were to happen. But this is the top four standings, after the week number 3 of the 2022 college football season. Georgia beats Alabama, though, in the national championship if this game were to happen. So like I said, it's Georgia versus Michigan in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And then the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, it's Alabama versus Ohio State. The only thing I think changed here for this, for these rankings was the Alabama and Ohio State rankings was, I think Alabama was ranked number 3 last weekend, and Ohio State was ranked number 2. And I had Ohio State beating Georgia in the national championship, and I have Georgia winning that game. So for the third straight week, Georgia wins the national championship if this game were to happen. And that concludes my top 4 standings here. You agree or disagree with these standings? Let me know down in the comments below. And stay tuned here for more on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.